So there are a few problems with this comment. The first is that, strictly speaking, we weren't playing D&D. We were playing D20 Modern, which is a system that utilizes the same basic mechanics as Dungeons and Dragons 3rd edition, mind you. So any context that comes from like 5th edition or 4th edition or anything like that is not relevant to this discussion. But it is based on the rule set of D&D 3rd edition, but they did some things different with it. They used those mechanics in some different ways. But however, the second issue is that neither system, D&D or D20 Modern, defines genius. It doesn't define it in terms of an intelligence score at all. So when you say in D&D a 19 is a genius, that's not coming from the system. That's not coming from the books. That is something that either you came up with or someone that else who came up with it told you that. But it's not from the books. It isn't actually a rule. You're citing something that doesn't exist. Now, this was a practice in AD&D, where some people, in order to make the scores make sense, would actually take, if you want to understand how smart something is, take their intelligence score and multiply it by 10. That was an existing practice in AD&D. Again, I don't think that was in the books. I think that was more of a table-by-table thing. But it was a thing that existed, that was used, that you can still find references to online. However, in the D&D 3.5 book, on page 9, it describes intelligence, and it doesn't really give a description on what genius would be related to that. In fact, by D&D rules, it doesn't strictly relate at all. But if you look at the average intelligence scores, this table right here, humans, of course, are at 10, 11. Humans, along with bugbears, wights, night hags, things like that. When you get up into the 14, 15 range, you're looking at invisible stalkers, wraith, will-o-wisps. By the time you get to 19, you're looking at mind flayers. 20, titans, krakens, things like that. Which says that those things are well above what a human genius would normally be, like baseline human genius. I have an IQ that put my score at 14, just as a note. I am nowhere near a mind flayer. Like, that's a fact. I can say that's their whole thing, is how much more advanced their intelligence and their thought process and everything is than a human. 16, 17 is where you have beholders, trumpet archons, things like that. Like, these things are above baseline genius level. They are well above that. And they have scores 16, 17, 18, 19. So applying this idea, even though D&D doesn't strictly say to apply this idea to IQ, in fact, it suggests that you shouldn't. But when we need a rough and dirty system, just to take something measurable, because otherwise, what are you going to do? Like, oh, you seem like a 12 to your friend and then get into an argument about it. Like, we need something measurable that we could then translate. And this was a convenient way to do that. And it does work if you apply it universally. That is, if everyone in the game is treated that way, if that is how intelligence is treated in the entire campaign, it's a fine way to do it. There's also the fact that in D&D 3rd edition, you're looking at a situation where 20 is basically considered supernatural. So if you're playing with, this scale as it exists in the books, where 20 is supernatural, like something that humans are unlikely to ever achieve, and then you say that genius is 19, you've taken what is, kind of average or above average and expanded it so far that it's almost impossible to have a character who is a genius. And that doesn't really work. That doesn't really entirely make sense for the setting. In terms of, if 20 is and above is supernatural level intelligence, then 19 can't be genius. Like, it can't be the baseline for genius. It just that doesn't end up working. So taking IQ divided by 10 is not a perfect system. Like I said, in D&D, it's not actually directly related to IQ at all. It's about other things. And obviously there's problems with the IQ system itself. But in terms of coming up with a system that would just get us a score and allow us to move on to other things, it was fine. And I think, frankly, it's better than the one that's being proposed here.